it's hard, but try and you make it. Believe you me. In order to achieve, go forth and take it. Set yourself free. With obstacles in your way, you may fall before you rise. But if you really want good, you know the run. So get up and keep your eyes on the prize. So as part of your plan, you feel of ambition, and the Almighty One as your foundation. Hey, nobody get rich and rich because that's definitely wrong. Maybe gonna don't forget your friends and where you come from. If you are thief, remember God now sleep. And although you rob a man and you get well last week, you fall about the street, but you're beaten going steep because God is a silent river and you know him run deep. Throughout history, lots of great men and women went about things the old-fashioned way. They just kept on winning and winning. So strive, step up in life and go forth. You know you've got to strive. Remove the doubt from out your mind and let good flow. Be not moved by smart remarks from people who think they're witty. Moving on, my gotta be strong and don't indulge in self-pity, but strive.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Wellness Wednesday to you all. And welcome to another edition of the JN Circle Thrive Together Life Class Series. It is our special place. We've been going for 5 weeks now, and I'm really excited about how you always come into the space with so much energy, so much life, and so much to say. So welcome back. Please get comfy. As usual, if you need to grab your water, grab your wine, your tea, your coffee, whatever your soup, whatever you're doing, grab that and get cozy. We're in for another amazing treat. Hi, Stacy. Hi, Shanique. I see you from last week. Welcome back into the space. I am your host, Kamala McQuinney, and I'm really excited to be here this week. This week, we're talking to our men, right? Now, I'm going to invite them to come on stage one by one. In our presence this evening, we have Patre Rowe. Welcome, Patre. Come into the space. Please come on stage. Come sit beside me. We also have with us Kerry Scott. Kerry, there you go. Hi. And we also have with us this evening, Brian Cuff. So these are going to be the three men who will be guiding us in our conversation this evening about maneuvering masculinity. And we're talking about as parent, as protector, and as provider. All right. Now, to give you a little bit more information about how the space works and some more information on our esteemed panelists this evening, I'm going to share screen one more time just to pull up my slide deck so I can introduce you a little bit more with a little bit more detail. Here we go. So as I mentioned, it's maneuvering masculinity. Our topic is parent, protector, and provider. And Kerry Scott is also a justice of the peace, and he is the head of real estate and properties in JN Properties Limited. So he's a part of the JN family. So extra special welcome to Kerry this evening. Thanks for accepting our invitation. Brian Cuff is a media practitioner, producer, host, and editor. And you may see him very often on TikTok or on TVJ. We also have with us this evening, Patre Rowe, who is the project portfolio manager with the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And we can't wait to get into the meat of this powerful conversation. Last week, we had a panel full of women. And I heard some of you in the comments saying we need to balance out the team. And you know, JN listens. So this week, of course, we have completely male, right? A male panel, 100%, and we're going to be talking some powerful things. So for those of you who are new to the space, I'm Kamala. I am a therapist and psychological safety trainer and coach. And one of my favorite things to do is host JN Life Class Series, right? If you are also new to the space, we have a raise hand feature. We also have a chat box where you can drop your comments, drop your feedback on what the panelists are saying. And the Q&A box is specifically for questions and answers. So if you want one of the panelists or all of them to answer one of your questions, then drop it in the Q&A box so that we can pull it up, maybe invite you to raise hand and come on microphone, come on stage, so to speak, and share your thoughts. All right, that's it for share screen. It's time to talk some good things. All right, now I want to start off almost continuing from the last 2 weeks of live class. So Patrick, Kerry, and Brian, I want to ask each of you to just give me your insight on a very important question. Before we get to that question, we have our Thrivometer pre-class poll. And if you notice in all capitals under the heading, it says for what? For men only. And Patrick, Kerry, and Brian cannot vote. So for those of you who are joining us, please do go ahead and pull that up and answer our questions. And in a few minutes, we're going to be asking for your feedback. So we're treating the men special tonight. I don't want any women to answer, only for our young men or middle-aged men or older men, all men, to answer the pre-class poll this evening. So thank you in advance for completing those questions. Now, Patrick, Kerry, Brian, last week or week before last, we asked a very interesting question of some women. We said to them, what do you want men to know about women and their needs? So of course, tonight, a full time to talk to us about what you want women to know about men masculinity and your roles as parent, protector, and provider. So let's start off big picture. What do you want women to know about men? Patricia, coming straight to you. So go ahead and share your thoughts with us.
All right, great. Thank you. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening, Madam Host. Good evening, JN, and everybody that is on the platform. Thanks for having me once again. I feel extra special to be here another time. Yes.
I see you thrive together like that.
Yes.
Beside you. We know you're special.
Right. All right. So to answer your question, I think one of the things I want women to know that men need validation. That's important. I think women oftentimes believe that, women needs to be told, how men feel about them, how they look, but men need that too. And, we as men are not taught to appreciate the emotional side because especially in Jamaica, we grew up believing that man should be tough, man should not be effeminate. Men should, go through the roughest of things, endure the harshest of things, and, just be firm in all things. But of course, I think that women needs to know that men need to be validated. Men need to know how they look, how they make you feel. Men need a safe space to communicate their emotions and to communicate in peace and what they're feeling without any reservation that they will be judged for it.
We appear to be having some technical issues. Give us some second. Let me try to get Kamala back online. Okay, we have her joining us. There we go. Over to you, Kamala.
Having some technical issues with the team for holding it down. Please go ahead, Patrice. So sorry I missed that very insightful share. But the last thing I heard was that men need that too, and that men were not raised to. So please continue from there, Patrice, and thank you so much.
Sure, no problem. I was saying that men need a safe space to express themselves. Oftentimes, either in relationship, in family home, men who are expressive are often told that they are too soft. Men who are in touch with their emotional side are often, how you behave like girls, right? And I think our men needs to know that it is okay to say how you feel. It is okay to get emotional. It is okay to be vulnerable. It is okay to express yourself in peace without any concern that it will be used against you, right? So I think that it's important for women to know that men needs to be validated.
Wow. So Patrice, what you're saying is that men want to hear that you look nice. Men want to hear that I like how you do XYZ. These are important things for our men to hear.
Of course it is. Absolutely. Because I believe that a man's manhood is demonstrated through his ability to provide and his ability to satisfy. And notice I did not say his ability to be satisfied, right? A man needs to know that he's doing something right, right? So, and I believe that is important.
Absolutely important. Let me jump.
You said to Brian, right? All right. For me, I think there are several things that women need to know. I'll agree with Patrice. I love the part about a safe space, not just a space, but a safe space. I think it is important to remind them that we're not all men. So every man would want every woman to know we're not all men. So all of these generalizations and these statements that all men are this or all men are that, that's one of the first things that it needs to go. And we want to be judged on our own merit. And finally, I think women need to also remember that it's not just about sex for men. A lot has to do with respect, right? And if you do a quick poll, a lot of men will put respect first on their list before getting into anything else. So I think a lot of times, the lines are muddied as to what men really want and what's most important to us. So that's how I would want to start.
Excellent, Brian. So we're hearing some powerful points coming up already. And I'm going to jump over to Kerry because I suspect Kerry has something very powerful to add to the shares so far.
Yeah, thanks. And good evening to everybody who's watching. I think men generally want women to understand that we are different. We're made different, differently. We have different ways of doing things. What I've found is that generally women sometimes will want men to operate in a particular way. And a woman may not understand why a man does the things that he does in that particular way. And in so doing, that woman may believe that, her man is one of a kind. But if she has that discussion with other women, she will understand that we are practically all the same. So, so one of the things that Brian also touched on was respect. And I think that respect is something that, men crave for. One of the things that I learned just recently, maybe a couple of years ago, from my wife was about love languages. I never thought about what my love language was. When she brought that to me, that sort of, helped me to start thinking a little bit more. And these are the type of things that we want women to understand, that we aren't just the bravado type, egotistical, men who walk around and beat the chest, but we also need that little vulnerable space. Wherever that space is for us, women need to understand that we need that space. And sometimes that space may not be inside our homes, but we need that space. And the sooner we can find that space, the better it will be for everybody.
So I have a question, because I'm wondering if it's kind of a chicken and egg situation, right? Is it a case where women get the wrong message about men and their vulnerability needs from the men? Or is it that in response to women not thinking that men need this, that men say, well, I'm not going to show this part of it? Where do you think it started?
Well, I mean, it started pretty much from us. I'll be honest, it really started with us, because we give off this bravado type, thing. And also that is primarily because of how society really and truly has what I'd like to call pigeonhole men, where when I was a youngster growing up and I did certain things, I showed any sign of weakness, they invariably I knew what was coming. Why are you behaving like a girl? At school, that was one of the worst things that somebody could say to you at school. Hey, you're a big girl. You get me? So I'd like to say that we were cultured in that particular way. And because we're cultured in that particular way, we give that off to women. So from a very early age, men generally try to show that kind of bravado type thing to women. And because of that, women, or I should say girls, they would take a particular perception and they would carry that perception into womanhood. And I think that is pretty much where we have the issues.
Absolutely. So because I want to hear our very special poll, it's the first time in life class history, by the way, right? Patricia is a veteran and Brian is becoming a veteran, right? First time in life class history, thanks to all of you, that we have asked only the men to speak. So if any woman answered the poll, please repent right now. It was not for you. Please extract your responses. It was for the men. And I want to pull up those answers now and share with our class to just get a sense of what the men are saying, what they're feeling. Are you able to see it? Can you see the results on your screen? Okay, perfect. So question 1, how would you describe your current mood? And let me see now, we have 8% of you feeling miserable and 92% of you who are feeling either okay or ecstatic, yeah? So for those of you who are feeling miserable, we understand it's a very weird time and we hope life class can help to boost that mood by time, class ends this evening. Question 2, how would you describe your self-love status? Because we want to talk about men and self-love tonight as well. 69% of you, that's the majority of the respondents, said, I'm getting there. And I like that. 8% of you said, I'm new to this journey. And 23% say, I have a good way to go and I'm willing. That's the part I love. So many of you are doing very well on the self-love piece and I'm happy to hear that. Question 3, what has been the hardest part of the masculinity journey for you? And the majority of you, I see Brian laughing, 54% say not having a healthy support system of other men. And Kerry touched on it, right? The safe space. Let me see the next most popular response. 23% of you said not having good role models of masculinity. 15% say managing outside feedback about yourself. And 8% of you said healing from negative experiences that shape how you view yourself. Question 4, with which of the following roles have you had the greatest challenges? 46%, not surprising, they said romantic partner. So we're going to talk about partnering, right? What do women need to know about men as partners? What do men need to know from other men about the partnering space, whether it's boyfriend or man or husband, whatever it is? 15% of you said either protector or parent, and 23% of you want some feedback on the provider role, right? And the last one, what are you expecting from this class? And let me see, 46% of you said inspiration that will help me stay committed to my journey of masculinity. 38% tips on how to manage relationships as a man. That's all kind of relationships now, as parent,
We've lost Kamala again. Apologies, everyone. See you with us. We'll try to get her back online quickly. Thanks.
Are you all able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much. So several difficulties happening with the connection that I'm having right now. So let's pick up from where we were, right? Let me just steady my device so that I can better focus on all of you. Trying to make it work by whatever means necessary. All right. So those were the results of the poll. And I was saying that we have our work cut out for us this evening as panelists because the audience has spoken by way of want to see and what they want to hear. So let's start off on some of the areas that were loudly represented in the survey, in the poll just now. A lot of you said that you want information about how to be a good partner as a man. So I'm going to ask our very experienced panelists to walk us through some of those very important nuggets that they have learned along the way about what works and, importantly, what does not work as it relates to relationships that men form. So we talked earlier about, being in that space where you have knowledge of yourself. That's also important. And the poll referenced self-love. I want to talk to the men this evening about what your journey has looked like as it relates to self-love. We had a very deep conversation last week with the women about self-love and about, the different things that impact how women feel about themselves and about their bodies. So I want to hear from the men. What has your journey, Brian, looked like as it relates to self-love? Where would you put yourself on that scale, on that journey? Would you say you're, I want to hear your response. Would you say you're almost there? Would you say you are working on it? Would you say you're close? Help me understand how it has manifested for you so far.
Well, I love myself, I love myself. Good. But I think there is still work to be done. I think men don't often spend time to love ourselves. It even sounds weird saying it, and I'm sure a lot of men be like, oh, what is he saying? But, I often tell people, I've been married since 2014, and one of the things when people see me, they ask, where is my better half or my other half? And I tell them, say straight up, I appreciate the term, but I'm not a half, I'm a whole. And I think for me to be the best in my relationship, I had to spend some time developing who I am as a person, developing my idea as to what it means to be a man, and to use a term everybody used, to be a real man, relearning what it really is. And also, most importantly, understanding what it is in the context of my relationship. So, as it relates to self-love, I've had to learn to love. I remember in high school, there were things about myself I hated, and there were particularly girls who would identify some of them. And I remember one particular situation where I stood up in the class and I loudly, I waited until everything was quiet, and I loudly embarrassed a girl for trying to rub me the wrong way. And it made me feel good because everybody was reeling and saying, yo, them never know say I suck off state. But after that, it felt guilty. I felt guilty, I felt bad, and I went home and I couldn't sleep that night until I went back to her and I apologized. So it's straight up, you have to love yourself first before you can love anybody else. and we don't spend time to love ourselves. A lot of us have different insecurities. A lot of us have different warped mentalities about what it means to be a man and what it means to be a real man or an ideal man, physically, emotionally, mentally. I'm about 80%, 90%. There's always room for improvement, but I think it goes back to also finding yourself in a higher being. You know, I believe in God, and I try to match up to what I think God would want me to be. So I believe that all of those things put together will help me to become, you know, a better man and loving myself some more. I have to love the way I talk, the way I look, you know, before I can expect somebody to love me the way I love myself and the way I want to love them. So, you know, it's only fair for me to love myself before asking her to love me.
And I like what you said, Brian, that it even sounds weird. I like the honesty of that expression because you rarely, I rarely, I don't know about the audience, please chime in here and let me know if I'm wrong, but I rarely hear men having conversations about self-love. And even recently, I heard one of our panelists say, listen, men, want to make sure to count on yourself as prize too. Not only the women are prizes, but you are a prize too. How often do we hear that coming from men about men or coming from women about men? So I think these are really important conversations to be having. Let me jump over now to pick Patrice's brain about your journey to self-love, Patrice. What has that looked like? Where do you think you are on the scale, if you care to share that?
I'm sure. I mean, for me, I am very high up on the scale in terms of self-love. I'm very confident in who I am, what I'm about. And I mean, it's funny, you know, growing up in Jamaica, a lot of people believe that if you love yourself, you're too conceited, or you can be conceited. And I mean, people always find different ways to challenge your belief system about who you are and how you express that. I mean, I grew up in a multi-generational home in deep rural Manchester. You know, my 90-year-old grandfather is watching this program this evening, and one of the ideas, the concept of love was perhaps novel. I mean, in deep rural Jamaica, you know, people really don't say, I love you. So now as a father, I make sure to tell my son how much I love him. I mean, my grandfather would tell me that he loved me by probably buying 2 pounds of flour to give me on a birthday, or, you know, just giving you something or giving a fruit. It's most implied than expressed. And, you know, we grew up struggling with, you know, what the concept of love is. And I have experienced all the different institutions of socialization from school, where I was probably bullied in the early part of schooling and so on. And it kind of generated or influenced a high level of confidence for me to resist that kind of thing, to not allow it to get to my psyche. But I think one of the most impactful area of socialization for me was church. And as Brian said, you know, because for me, I never missed church. I was very active in church. And I mean, for me, church taught me to be subservient, to just be, just grasp the concept of love. And I mean, if it is embedded in you consistently to love God and, you know, love people, you know, it will eventually become a natural part of you to demonstrate love and represent and understand what love is about. And therefore, for me, certainly, I mean, I love myself. I know what I bring to the table. I'm very confident about who I am. And I think that is reflected in everything that I do.
Very interesting there, Patrice, because I hear so much feedback and sometimes criticism about church as it relates to men. I hear feedback that, you know, men don't have enough representation or enough, the space doesn't always reflect the way that men need to, you know, to connect. But I love your testimony about how it is that church was a good space for you, one that taught you about submission, one that taught you about commitment. So that's a beautiful takeaway from this class as well. And maybe eventually you can share what your church did right, because I want to hear more men saying church has been it in terms of a good space of socialization as well. Yeah, so we can come back to that in a few, Patrice. Thanks for sharing. So Sir Kerry, please jump back in now and talk to us about the self-love. Where are you on your scale?
Wow, it has been a journey. And I think one of the reasons why it has been a journey for me is because I had to first and foremost understand what self-love is. One of the things that I struggled with, and I still struggle with, is, am I giving myself enough love? Am I giving others more love than I give myself? How do I share this? I'm extremely connected to a lot of things, various things. And what I find is that I tend to give a lot of myself, and giving a lot of myself also means giving a lot of love, because I'm a part of programs with a lot of young people. And when I see somebody who comes in and they don't understand what love is, they don't know what love is, I find that I try to give that to them. But then I have to ensure that I have enough love to give at home, to my wife, to my children, and to my close friends, my family. So that has been my journey. My journey has been understanding how to adequately share that love, to ensure that I give myself what I deserve, and also I give others who deserve some love from me enough love. So that has been my journey.
Your journey.
Right, but at the same time, I remember, I believe, was it Patriarch Brian who mentioned about being the prize. Now, baby, I a couple of years ago or so, I was reading something, and I stumbled upon somebody saying that a man, saying that he was the prize. And I went home, and I came home, and I, in a discussion with my wife, and I said to her, you got the prize,
What's her response, Kerry?
Was what? So just going through this now, it just leads me back to the whole conversation about love and who is the prize? Who is the prize? Am I the prize? Is she the prize? These are the things that we need to properly look at and see exactly where we fall in the equilibrium.
Absolutely, I love that. And I'm especially passionate, Patre, Brian, and Kerry, about the future. So sometimes I jokingly said to my friends that, listen, we all are tough now, but we need to make sure that the next generation is set up for success, right? Some of we gone bad, and no matter if we choose therapy, or many of us will not choose therapy, we may just not overcome certain things, especially if we're not committing to a journey of transformation. But what about the sons and daughters and the adults of tomorrow? That's important for me. So I want to kickstart us now into another element of our conversation. And all of you on this program this evening as panelists are parents, your fathers. So I want to talk about what you have found to be valuable lessons in terms of parenting. I know Brian has 2 daughters. I know Patria has a son, and Kerry, you have a son and 2 daughters, is it? Or the other way around?
Other way around. 2 sons, 1 daughter.
2 sons, 1 daughter. So we have the representation, right, on this class tonight. And I was especially intrigued by Patrice's story, because Patrice said, like many of us, his grandfather was not the type to come and say, I love you. Many of us know as adults, when we tell our parents that we love them, we might get up, Yeah. There is no verbalizing of, yes, I love you too, because it's difficult for so many of them even still. And I'd love to hear the audience's take on that. Do you agree? And so what have you had to unlearn in order to be a good parent? And what are some of the let's say, the top 2 things that you want the men who are listening, especially who are parents, to walk away from this class thinking about and maybe making an effort to change? Let me start with whom I assume is the youngest parent of the 3, right? Brian?
Well, I've had to, I won't even say relearn. I've had to learn. I think every single day is a part of my learning process. I think, every single encounter I have with my girls is another opportunity for me to learn. And I think one of them is learn to be in the moment. Learn to be in the moment with your kids, especially during lockdown and in a curfew type of situation now, where we are so heavily dependent on our devices. As men, we are often there, but not there. Respectfully, we are trying in an effort to be there more, but sometimes we're in the space, but we're not mentally in the space. So I've had to learn that, and I'm still relearning it. You know, sometimes I'm around them and they're playing and I'm on my device, and, you know, one of them will come to me and say, Daddy, so and so and so. And I say, yeah. And I have no clue what they said, you know, in all honesty. And I think we're guilty of that as men. We are now trying to be in the space a lot more, but we're in the space, but we're not mentally there, we're not emotionally there, we're not connected to them. You know, we are in their presence, but we are not present in the moment. And that's powerful for me, because I've been guilty of it. And I see the importance of being there, having my father left for the families better when I was a young man growing up. And I see the importance of being there. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I have learned. You asked for two, provision. I think it's tied into what we're looking at now. Providing for them is more than physically providing for them or financially providing for them. And that is one of the things we grew up. Well, I grew up as a young man learning that daddy was needed to provide financially. Daddy would get this, daddy would get that. And, you know, financially, I would buy the groceries or I would make sure they get their toys or whatever. But that was it, you know. So I'm learning, you know, from my experiences as a boy growing up to being involved with my two girls, one more than the other because worked me away from a lot of the first 2 years. So I'm relearning and I'm readjusting. And I think it's important for the men to know that it's never too late. I missed out on a lot of my first girls, you know, early years, but I'm trying to make it up. And a lot of men, you know, you feel like it done gone already. And boy, I wasn't there, so whatever. You know, it's not too late to make it up.
I love that, Brian. And so what you just said brings to mind an adage I heard some maybe years ago about how sometimes PRESENCE, your presence sometimes outweighs all the, and here comes Love K in the comments with it, outweighs PRESENTS, the gifts that we give to those we love. And as a daughter, right, who had longed for her father's presence with the CE earlier in life, these are very powerful gems to be dropping this evening. So thank you for that, Brian. And on that last point you made, I think sometimes, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong because I'm not a man, right? Sometimes I believe that there's an ego piece too, the kind of fear of coming back and admitting that, you know, I wasn't there can be difficult for some men as well. So to come back and say, let me make a change implies that I did not do it right the first time. And it can be a hugely difficult thing for people. And because of how we socialize our men, for our men especially, to come back and say, you know what, let me make a change. Is that true, Brian? Would you say so?
It is. And that's a part of the relearning that we have to do as well. Men don't typically want to admit when they're wrong. I mean, women more than men, but we're not throwing anywhere than women today, right?
Wow, I wasn't expecting that, Brian.
I have to be honest, right? You know, but we have to understand that as it relates to relationships, especially with the opposite sex and our children, there's no place for ego. There's no place for ego. I mean, yes, we may have this bravado when it's, you know, protecting them from the outside world and dealing with different situations. But in-house, there's no place for ego. You're wrong, and your children are learning from you as well. And if you cannot say to them, I'm wrong and I'm sorry, daddy did this, daddy did that, put on the phone, or daddy comes back and he says, I'm going to spend this weekend with you, just totally, entirely with you, not doing anything else, then what are they learning and what are they going to do when they grow up? And it's the same thing with your partner. If your partner is getting that from you, when she's wrong, she's going to be like, all right, I'm going to say I'm wrong. So I'm not going to say I'm wrong. And it causes more tension. So I think as the men, as the leaders, as the head, we should be the ones first of saying, I'm wrong when I'm wrong.
So Brian, you touched on a very salient point. You said that as the leaders and as the heads. So we need to discuss that piece in a short while. But let me jump over to Kerry about this part of parenting. On your journey so far, Kerry, the same question. What have you had to unlearn, or what have you had to be doubling down in terms of learning to be a good parent?
Well, for me, it's not about unlearning. For me, it's about learning, continuous learning, the journey of learning. Mm-hmm. And I think that what I've had to learn is, and I constantly have to be reminded that, you know, I need to show love. I need to show love to the children, especially the boys. In the very early stages of parenting for me, I couldn't see myself kissing my son, you know, because I just thought that, hey, you know, you don't want to be doing that. But over time, with more feedback from my wife, I've realized that this is a necessary part of growing up and showing love to your children, especially to your boys. It's more than just patting them on the back and saying, good job, when my son is playing football, he scores a goal, they say, but good job, and so on. He has to now feel the love. And by that, I mean, by him running to me, me hugging him, that is him feeling the love. So it's all good and well. Sometimes we say, well job, well done, good job, so on and so forth. But ultimately, that feeling, the touching, that speaks volume to your children. And that is a journey for me. I have my youngest, he's 3. He loves to kiss, he loves to show affection, hug, that sort of thing. And I don't want to take that away from him. I find I find myself sometimes not really going all in to try and, show him that kind of love, especially when he wants to express it. But then, I have sometimes that little voice, coming in my head, the voice of my wife saying, remember, you have to show love, remember. So, and you'll hear me talk about my wife a lot, because I think for me, I believe she understands love, and she is pretty much helping me to get there. And it is also helping with the children, because my children are now experiencing, the type of love that I necessarily did not experience. And it wasn't because my parents, didn't love me or so. It's just that my parents were hardworking people, were always out. My father was a police officer, retired police officer. So, he was always out, early morning, gone, late at night. And he didn't drive at the time. So he took the bus home. And back in them days, in the early 80s, thereabouts, it wasn't so easy to travel. Mm-hmm. And, so sometimes I didn't see him. He was away on duty for, an extended period of time, or so he said, and my mother also was a working woman. So very early, I grew up mostly with my sister. She's older than I am, 4 years older than I am, but very early, we were going to school on our own. We were coming home on our own, looking after ourselves, talking about as early as maybe 5-6 years of age. I was doing that. We were doing that sort of thing. So my parents really and truly didn't get the opportunity to express the type of love that I am now able to show. And I had to be vigilant to know that, hey, I didn't get it, but that doesn't mean that I can't give it. And I also have to be vigilant by understanding whenever my wife says to me, you need to show love, that what she's saying really and truly, is real.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And I love how I can hear the partnership between you and your wife, Kerry. I love your receptivity to your wife's nodding and, her teaching about what she thinks is healthy for your boys and your girl. And I also love the intentionality, because it takes intentional action for, to frame healthy relationships. I'm loving what I'm hearing so far. See the this. I'm really glad, Norma. But let me jump over to Patrice for your journey into your role as parent, Patrice.
Okay, great, thank you. So I personally believe that a man is a full sum total of his experiences. Your experiences can either break you or make you a better person. For me, I am becoming the father that I wanted when I was a child. right? And I believe that is important. One other thing for me is to, as I said before, to be expressive, to let my son know exactly how I feel about him, make him feel comfortable to speak about what his challenges are, what he needs, be very observant. I have learned very early not to impose what I want for myself, for my son. In one instance, I paid for months of piano lesson for my son until the tutor said to me, are you sure JR wants to do this? And I said, I'll have a talk with him. And I said, JR, you don't want to play the piano? He said, Daddy, I did it because you wanted to do it. So I've learned to give him a space to just to cultivate his own kind of creativity, appreciate his own personality, right? And as a father, I think that is very important for me to give him a space to express himself, for me to allow him to be his own person, right? I mean, as a child growing up, it was much different. I've never had to beat my son, and I got a lot of beating. If mommy watching this, mommy knows it's true. I got a lot of beating, but I mean, I no love lost, but it's just that I wanted to be a different kind of father for my son. 12-year-old did exceptionally well in PEP recently, 98% average. I'm really proud of him, and I let him know how proud I am of him. Going to high school September. We just this week I had a long discussion with him about my high school experiences and what he should expect going into high school. And I mean, it was so refreshing to hear the level at which my 12-year-old reasoned. And I'm so happy that I have learned to appreciate, to give him that space. And because I believe a good idea, a good thought, a good conversation can come from any place. And it's important for us to understand that.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Let me pull up some of the comments, Patri and my fellow panelists, because the audience is here as usual with the good stuff, right? That's why I love the J and Life class family. So I saw a comment from Kimberly. Kimberly says, my mother doesn't say I love you at all. She would write it. And that's exactly how I am now. I find it hard to say I love you to anyone at all. I will type it in a text. I saw another very good feedback here from Olive. Olive says, our parents' actions spoke about their love for us and also the endearment or the pet names that they would call us. So much affirmation in the chat about how it is that, many of us didn't grow up with that kind of expression of love. And I see here, Peter Gay Graham says, males have been cultured and predisposed to be confident and believe they are worth it based on the cultural patriarchal history of society, where males are worth more than females. And as such, the focus is so heavily on females to love themselves because they're the ones who are predisposed to believe that they are worthless without a man. Very interesting dynamics here. Thank you for that, Peter Gay. And I saw a comment that I want to pull up also. Let me scroll down. Raquel Pinnock says, men always think women are wrong, but I'm learning a lot from these men. So big up on the self panelists, right? I love how Raquel has come in humbly. And then there's so much reference here to love languages. So we're going to talk about love languages in a short while. Let me see another one. Greg, welcome back, Greg. I saw you last week and welcome back this week. Greg says, this is exactly the position I play now in my son's life, even though I never got that kind of fathering from my father. I love it. Brian, I want to ask you, as we're kind of segueing now from parent into partner, which was the big ticket item from our poll. Let's talk about the love languages, Brian. So please tell us from your understanding what the 5 love languages are. And audience, listen carefully, because this might be the point that you'll get to win a prize, right? This might be the question that you will be asked to answer. And if you're correct, you may be able to win an Amazon gift card from the amazing host at JN Life class. So Brian, talk to us about love languages and how you have learned about the power of love languages in your marriage.
Before I got married, I was introduced to the book by Dr. Gary Chapman, and I read it quite extensively, several times, trying to understand it. But before I even go into my understanding of it, while I was here, Kamala, and just looking at people talking about it, and even hearing Kerry talk about it, I thought about it from a cultural perspective, that this 5 love language theory has hit Jamaica by storm, because I hear it everywhere, and I hear a lot of people talking about it, especially our women. But the men might not truly understand it from a cultural perspective, because I'm looking at what was typed by Peter Gay, physical touch. When a man hear that in a Jamaican context, say, yeah, I'm going to give a physical touch when he wants something. Yeah, words of affirmation. He might say, boy, baby, you look good enough. Yeah, man, when he wants something again. Acts of service. He believes that, carrying her to work and come back home, maybe that's how he believes it is. And gifts, him buy her a drink so he might come home from work or whatever. So, the 5 love languages is something that probably we need to dissect in a cultural context and look at it from a cultural perspective and teach our men what it really means. Because even though it's a cultural thing, mainstream media has, I don't want to say warped, but has socialized a lot of our women to think that over there is what we necessarily are going to do here. And that may not be the truth, yeah? It's important that we as men understand the general principle, and then we bring it down to our level. But women also should probably understand that it won't look the same way it look on TV. It won't look the same way it look from North America or from the USA and UK or wherever. So I think that is important as well. So it's physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, and giving of gifts. And the concept of it is that there is a primary love language and a secondary love language. And it's important to know that of yourself and one of your partner. Because a lot of times we as men and women in a relationship generally, we give what we would expect or what we would want to get, when the partner may not necessarily want that. So for my wife, one of her primary love language is quality time. Yeah. And when I was younger, earlier in our relationship, and even just meeting her, I was cultured to give gifts. You must give things, buy roses, buy bag, buy perfume, so I would spend a lot of money trying to buy and, win her over, in different ways. And when I learned that she would just want me to sit down and me and her watch movies from 10 o'clock straight back till 5 in the morning, and that's quite important to her, then I would now adjust, because for me also, it would be words of affirmation, and I would want to affirm her and give her these words of affirmation when it wasn't doing anything for her. So it was important for me to learn, because in a relationship, it's not about you. It's never about you. If you're pleasing the person and the person is pleasing you, everybody's happy. So I think it's something that needs to be dissected a lot. It's something that needs to be brought to a cultural level. And, it's very important though.
And Brian, you're doing your part tonight in helping us to start dissecting it from, into a cultural space, a culturally acceptable and understandable space, because you're right. It will not look the same way on TV. I want to underline that and put it in like all caps and highlight it in yellow, because I hear a lot of conversation. Men are frustrated because they're seeing all this flashy stuff that women are posting and saying, see, this is what he did for her birthday. This is how he proposed to her, the Instagram lifestyle. And people start to make, assumptions about what it means to give and what does a gift have to look like, and a whole host of other things. So thank you for that, Brian. And I see Deshane in the comments. Deshane says we have to be mindful too that there are more languages to dissect as it relates to love languages, and that Dr. Chapman's other book, Languages of Love, also has more information beyond the 5 that we're talking about tonight as well. So thank you for that, Deshane. So now, Kerry and then Patri, talk to us about the maybe like the golden rules that you have come upon as it relates to being a good partner. What are some of the mistakes? Because we sometimes talk about the wins only, but what are some of the mistakes that you have made and maybe are correcting from or have corrected from as it relates to being a good romantic partner?
So mistakes, too many to list out here.
We don't have enough time.
We don't have enough time. But I mean, one of the things that I've certainly learned is communication, talking. I was never somebody who liked to talk a lot. And when I started to, dissect how my partner was, I realized that she liked to talk. She liked to, express herself, let her feelings be known. And I was always somebody who held back. And even now, I still believe that I hold back a little bit. I'm in a far better place now. But I think one of the things that I had to learn, and learn very quickly, was that, my partner liked to talk. My partner was expressive. And if I wanted to connect with her, I had to try and find a way to be able to understand the things that she's saying. Also, what helped me is that she's not one of those women who will give you hints. Yeah? So she doesn't do the mood thing. She talks. She makes exactly how she feels. If there's an issue, she's gonna.
This is what it is.
You best believe it is what it is. I'm gonna put it on the table. However uncomfortable it is going to go on the table, and we're gonna flesh it out. However fleshing out looks like, whatever fleshing out looks like, we're going to flesh it out. And what I've learned is that after we both have decided that what we're going to do is, and I don't think we even sat. I don't think we sat and we decided that we're going to both decide that this is how we're going to always resolve our issues. No, I think what has happened is that over time, we both decided that it doesn't matter how we fleshed out things, at the end of it, we must come back to a basic understanding to ensure that that does not rear its ugly head again, and it doesn't come back before us again. And if it does come up at any point in time, we would have sufficiently dealt with it now, so that if it comes up any at all down the road, we'll know exactly how to manage it. So I think that one thing that has assisted in our relationship, and that is communication. I mean, there has never been, I believe, anywhere longer than maybe 2 weeks that, we haven't really spoken. Those type of, I really have to talk to you type thing, but at some point in time, in our own way, we could be sitting together, and this is always one of our alone times. We could be sitting together around the table, lying in bed. Somebody is going to say, I didn't like that. And then the conversation starts, and it goes on for maybe sometime hours. And then invariably, the heart just feels a little bit softer.
Lighter.
You feel lighter, and you're just glad that you're able to move past that, so that, you can chat way forward. But I think that communication has been the tool that we have used in our relationship to sort of ensure that we keep connected, and we tie our thoughts together.
I love it. And as you did this, Kerry, that's where my headspace was going, because communication really is the gel, it's the glue, and it's what builds intimacy. And to the point that Brian was alluding to earlier, intimacy is not only about sexual, it's about the closeness that is necessary to make especially a romantic commitment actually work, And as you were talking about the talking, Kerry, that's one of the things I hear a lot of men say to me, whether in therapy spaces or just in informal conversation, that, oh my God, I don't talk as much as my partner, as my female partner. And it's hard for me to meet her where she wants to be met. So I hear some men also talking about asking for grace and space to be quiet, or to choose when they want to have the communication, right? Or to say to, I see Samantha say, I talk a lot. Samantha says, I want to know what's on your mind. I don't like, I'm good, or it's no biggie, chat to me. That's what Samantha says, right? And so it's important for there to be balance and understand each other's preferences as well. And not for there to be like my style is right and your style is wrong as well. So thank you for adding that, Kerry. Patrie, what have been your golden rules in the romantic partnership space?
Well, certainly, my spouse is everything I've prayed for. you know,
Come on now.
and you know, that is important to me. And I mean, I think that I've had a long time to just pray to God about the kind, I just be very deliberate and explicit about the kind of woman that I want. And I also ask him to prepare me for her. And, you know, it makes the relationship so much easier. It doesn't mean that we don't have challenges, but I mean, we appreciate and love each other so much that notwithstanding the challenges, we love each other more than any challenge that we have. And one of the things for me, over throughout my experiences is that, you know, there was a time when there was nothing to me that was more important than my career and, you know, getting myself properly positioned and to do well in my professional life. And over the years, I've learned the value of quality time and spending quality time. And for me, that's one of the golden rules for me. I mean, spending time together with my partner. I can't wait to get home in the evening. I can't wait to have weekends. We do road trip together. Every single thing we do together. The only thing I don't do is to take her to work, right? And I believe that that's really. And sometimes she visits me at work, but it's very important. Quality time is extremely important, and that's one of the golden rules for me. And for the men who complain that you know, they have, you know, as Kerry said, I have a strong partner who does not have any reservation to tell you how she feels. After a disagreement, she's the first one to say, hey, let's talk about this. You know, and I believe that one of the most valuable things for me as a man is to listen. You know, there is no confusion in listening. Right, and even, you know, allow the woman to communicate freely, to speak, and believe that, and not only listen but active listening, right? And that has been a golden rule for me that worked, and you know, I'm just so happy and, you know, feel so blessed with what I've had and what I've cherished, and the fact that both of us understand love and love each other unconditionally.
I love that. And I see Philip Pinnock, one of our former panelists on Life Class. I love what the tribe just come back, you know. Philip says communication is the key. No, that was Venetia, sorry. Philip says communication is so important in relationships, and love languages can evolve as well. That's another very important part of it. And on that note of love languages, Philip and the rest of the audience members, I want to give you a gift, courtesy of the JN Circle this evening. As promised, we have an Amazon gift card for one lucky person, and that lucky person is going to be asked to do the following. Correctly drop in the chat the author of the book, The 5 Love Languages. And if you're correct, you can win for yourself an Amazon gift card, courtesy of the ever generous JN Circle family. And I see a very early, wow, I see a very early voter. So tech team, please do your magic. And choose the winner and announce who it is. I won't call the name that I see on my screen. I'll leave that to you to announce in the chat. Congratulations to the winner, and the tech team will tell you how you can contact them to claim your prize, right? Now, in this second segment of our conversation, Patre, your last point is where I want to start the second segment, because you mentioned about the career. You mentioned about wanting to do well, you know, and what that looks like for so many men. I want to talk about maybe the pressure that sometimes you may feel as men, especially as it relates to the role of provider. Because let's be honest, a lot of women have been cultured. Your mother tell you, say, don't take up no broke pocket, man. Your mother tell you, say, what, she ask you point blank in your face, what does he do for himself? Therefore, what can he do for you? And if any children should come, what is the position that he can put you all into, right? So we have gotten a strong messaging around broke, right? And even if we broke, you know, right, Kerry and Brian, even if we broke and broke can be, the man don't supposed to broke beside we. So there's a lot of pressure that I imagine men feel about the role of provider. And we want to talk about it from a big picture and then from a Jamaican perspective, where, you know, we have several different, you know, socioeconomic levels, right? So I want to start with Kerry. Kerry, do you agree? Do you think that men experience this pressure to be providers, and can that have a negative impact on the well-being of our men?
Yes, certainly. I mean, that's one of the reasons I believe that a lot of men run, because of the pressure that comes with it. I mean, they know that, oh Lord, I mean, a child is now in the picture. A woman says they want me to be, straight up with them. This is a lot of pressure. And most of the pressure is because, again, how we've all been cultured. We've all been cultured that men are the providers, men are the breadwinners. They're the ones who are supposed to, be doing the heavy lifting in the household and so on and so forth. So, all of that pressure, when they think about all of that, I believe that is when, most men decide to run. Because the reality is, if it is that they had the means to take care of children and, they had the support system where they could continue being who they are, whether it's a road runner or, party animal, whatever it is. If they were still able to do all of that, still, have what I call the trophy wife and children, I'm sure more men would stick around. But the reality is, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. When I was growing up, all I understood my role to be at that time was to get a good job, make some money so that I can impress a nice young lady to become my partner. And at the initial stage, I thought that the more I was able to show a woman that I had acquired, that would have been, sufficient to sort of lure her into me. But over time, you sort of got to realize that, it's really not about that. But society would have cultured me from a young age that, hey, this is what you need to do. My mother also would have been somebody who, used to tell you that, you're no worthless man, no woman no want a worthless man. And by, hearing that no woman no want a worthless man, certainly it means no woman wants a man who's not working, can't provide for the household, and so on. That's what I saw a worthless man as, not being able to provide for the family. So, right throughout society, we have that pressure. Some of us are able to deal with it because that natural thing within inside of us that says this is actually your duty, especially men who are spiritual, men who understand what the Bible says that the role of the man is, and even in church, that is preached to you, that your role as the man is to be the head of the household, and as the head of the household, you ought to be able to do this. So even in church, that is something that is preached to you, and you have that pressure not only from the outside, but also you have the pressure at home with your parents telling you don't want to be, you're not supposed to be a worthless man. Mm-hmm. You go out the road, the public has said, this is what you're supposed to do. You're in church. They're saying, they're encouraging you to do this, to be that type of man, to be able to do this. There's a whole lot of pressure. Some of us crack under the pressure. Some of us are able to deal with it. And I think that maybe one of these days, if we're able to find that happy medium, we'll find less men being able to going over the edge.
And that's exactly why we're talking about it, because I see and I feel and I sense and I observe that so many men are not coping well under the pressure. And sometimes when there is no pressure being put on in reality, men perceive pressure because of their internal standards. So sometimes women are saying, but me not pressure you, sir. Me just want you to love me. And if you love me, we can figure out the you know, the bully beef and we can figure out the cornmeal. But I just want you to commit, and I want you to be committed to this journey. And the man sometimes will be challenged in some situations because of that, the messaging that is still so loud in, you know, in their headspaces. So it's a very powerful thing, and we need to start to create more spaces in intimate relationships to discuss it openly, you know, because sometimes I've heard stories of men who borrow them friend vehicle to impress a woman, or go take a loan, right, and buy new clothes, all types of things just to prove that I am capable, I am able. And that, I don't think that's the best thing, right? So we're going to talk about it tonight. And audience, please keep dropping in your comments, because I want to invite one of you or two of you to come on microphone if you have a particular question you want the panel to address on this matter. All right, so we're going to jump over now to Brian on this matter of provider and pressure. Brian, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think the pressure is real? How can we fix it? How can we address it?
The pressure is real. The pressure is real in so many different senses. I think the pressure, as Kerry said, it came from internal and external, and as you alluded to. But I think it has a lot to do with the culture, you know, what we've been forced to believe and what we've been cultured to believe over time. And we measure up, we try to measure up to what it is we have in our heads. So I remember growing up, for the ladies, it was always they want somebody tall, dark, and handsome. Yeah. So that pressure was already there to be tall. Can't get no darker, sorry, you know, but no, I'm handsome. So that was one of the pressures. Somebody made mention, I think it was Love made mention of, you know, if a woman has money and the man's still running, then that's another pressure, because he's now, based on what society says, based on what the media says, that this woman now is so independent and so strong that she don't have no need for a man. So there's so many different pressures. But I think one of the new pressures is, as we evolve and as we look at relationships and communication differently, we're now pressured as men to provide in a different sense. We weren't grown up to provide emotional security. We weren't grown up to provide financial stability. We weren't grown up to provide spiritual security or reassurance. We were grown up to provide the money. And most of our men, whether they are in a stable relationship or not, they have tried their best to provide financially. Now we're being pressured to be this new type of man that everybody is clamoring for. The 5 love languages, everybody's talking about it. And we were not cultured that way. So now we are now forced to restructure everything. And we feel like we are falling short. We're not able to do all of these things. So that's another pressure. And our men sometimes, yeah, they wilt under the pressure. Sometimes they run from the pressures. You know, I'm not advocating that in any way, shape, or form. But I think the communication that somebody made mention of earlier is what we need to have more communication lines, having the difficult conversations, just being real with each other. So men are pressured and they feel the pressures, and they're not going to go tell the woman, say, boy, babes, you know, say, I don't really understand this thing or whatever. He might go line up in his mind what it is she's saying, what it is that he can give. And if it don't work, him say, boy, next one, sadly, but yeah.
Wow, really, 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 really powerful insights here. And I love the comments coming in, because of a truth, I saw Sheldon make a comment that perhaps we also need to unpack the internal standards that men have as well. And I see Greg agreeing with Love about a friend who became a medical doctor and her husband feeling threatened by her new accomplishments. So there's a piece of the conversation that goes back to self-concept, self-confidence, self-love, in a way that men, like everybody else, do not need the validation of an outside source to feel worthy. You understand what I mean? Because there is a way that, and I'm coming to a Q&A in the box, which I think is perfectly aligned. There is a way that sometimes we can have a lot of fragility in people, and definitely in men, where if I don't have this person giving me this, then I don't feel like I am worthy at all. I don't feel like I'm valuable at all. And so my self-concept crumbles. And that ties in my mind, Patre, to the Q&A, the question in the box. Let me pull it up again. And if you see my fingers, sorry, it's because I'm using my phone. Genevieve says, how can we help men not to get to the point of being possessive and ultimately homicidal/suicidal in a relationship when they have invested and it comes to an end? That is what I'm referencing when I talk about the fragility, in that some men, without feeling like they have ownership over their partner, feeling as though the partner has rejected them partially or totally. There is nothing strong enough underneath it all to support them to say, I'm still valuable. My life is still valuable. My self-concept is still strong enough to withstand this. So how can we get to that point? I'm going to start with Patrie, especially in your capacity as a member of our JCF, right? Patrie, talk to us. What can we do about this pressure and the possessiveness?
Well, I mean, I think the pressure is real. Suppose we go on dates a lot, and invariable, the bill always end up in front of me because everybody assumes that the man is supposed to be paying the bill, right? So that's an external pressure and how society see the role of a man and that kind of thing. But I believe that is important for people to understand that money and sex or intimacy are not strong enough foundation on which to build anything at all.
Come on now, Bishop.
It is for us to understand that relationship is not a source of income generation, or relationship is not an investment. I mean, relationship is a partnership, right? And I mean, love is the foundation on which we should build anything, right? And if you love somebody, you should be able to love them enough to walk away knowing that you love them and you appreciate the value of the relationship and how it had impacted your life, if it has to go that way. And you should love them enough to know that if they are unable to provide or if they have deficiencies, it should not be used against them. And men need to also understand that even in relationship where the woman probably earns more money than you, financial support is not the only support you can give to a relationship, right? You can't not be doing nothing, right? So if you don't have money, it's not for you to just sit back and say, hey, I can't support her, I'm just gonna just be here. You can help to maintain the house. You can help to just do stuff to lighten the pressure. And it's a partnership, as I said before. And I think people must appreciate that. People must appreciate that their partners are not possessions, right? There are people with emotion. There are people that need to be heard. There are people, and people need to understand that if a relationship ends, it's not a death sentence, right? And a lot of us have been in relationships that didn't work out, and we move on to be in relationship with the woman or man of our dreams, and we just have to realize that life is a journey. And everybody that comes in our life comes in for a reason, right? It's about changing your perspective. I think perspective is very important. If you view somebody as possession, you will believe that you are set over them to be dominant, and therefore you will see them as property. It's perspective, and that's why dating is important, and that's another story for you to understand where people are. And I said before, a man is the full sum total of his experience. It's important for a woman to know what a man went through in his childhood. Where is he coming from? What is his source of income? All of these things are important. And, women sometimes don't pay attention to that, right? Because they believe that once the man is able to provide, it's all well and good. I'll take anything else, right? But we must understand the dynamics of relationship.
Absolutely. And Patrie, the comments coming in hot and heavy now, because we touch on some hot button topics. So on to your point about, if the man doesn't have it financially, he can take care of the home or so on. Janet says, Patrie, his male friends are going to call him mama man if his wife works and he stays home to take care of the house. And this brings me to my point now about the role of support. I saw Love K dropping a comment about what do men need. And coming from the poll questions, I saw where a lot of men are not faring as well as they want to on the masculinity journey because they don't have that network of supportive men in their lives. Because to Janet's point, if your friends are going to call you that name, that derogatory name, right, that's meant to be harmful, if it is that you are taking care of a house that you live in, then you need some new friends. So I think there's also something very important about having the right people around you and about accountability for men as well. And so I want to do a very quick and informal poll in the comments for all the men, and you've been very active tonight. I'm thankful for that, right? Sheldon, Philip, Greg, all of you. I'd love to get a sense of, do you feel like you have at least one or two male friends that you can go to whose counsel you trust? And if it's yes, just tell me yes in the comments. I just want to know how many of our men have a safe space with other men that you can go to when anything at all happens that you need to unpack. So Philip says yes. Welcome into the chat, Demar. Demar says yes. Sheldon says nope. NOPE. Andrew says no. Greg says if his friends are going to call him that, then he needs some new friends, or yeah, for true. So Greg says yes as well. So I'm getting mostly yeses. And this is the point I want to underscore. How can we, Patre, form better support systems for men, right? Is it easy? Is it hard? Is it, are the men who give good counsel fewer and far between than the ones who give bad counsel? Let me jump over to Kerry for your feedback on this, Kerry. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think that I believe that men who give good counsel are few and far in between. And that is primarily because what I've found is that oftentimes your friends, they really don't want to tell you the truth. They don't want to, because A, they don't want to seem as though they're, leading you astray. B, they don't want to hurt your feelings. They want to seem they want to seem as though they're supportive. No, they don't understand that in being supportive, part of the key component of being supportive is also to tell you the truth, also to live with you as a brethren, as we would say, man and man to man.
Yeah.
And just tell you the things, and just tell you, how them really see it through unbiased lens. If it is that you are the issue, then they should feel comfortable to say that you are the issue, boss man. You need to sort out yourself. Stop blaming everybody else and the lady and everything because you step in the water and all them things. That's right. You get me? So we have to understand that, because what I've found is that if you don't have that kind of realness about the people who you call friends, then you're pretty much on your own. And a lot of the things that you will say and do will all be, a farce, because it's based on something that your quote unquote friends believe you want to hear in the moment that you are in. So we need to understand, or we need to ensure that we have people around us who get it. People who understand the importance of telling us the truth and not feeling as though if them tell you the truth and you're vexed with them now, that there's any big issue with that. If you're vexed with me now, so be it. But I've told you the truth, and I believe that that is something that we can benefit from. We can all benefit from. So for me, I don't believe that we have a lot of friends who will tell us the truth. But what I can tell you, you need somewhere, you need somebody, you need something where you can unleash some of that heavy stuff that you're carrying with you. Because if you don't have anywhere to unleash some of that heavy stuff that you have carrying with you, what will happen is that what we've been seeing over the last couple of years or so, where men are doing some heinous acts, that is how it will spill out. That's the kind of thing that you'll have happen. Now, if the men who are possessive, if they had a friend who was to say to them, boss man, no man, that can't work, man. You can't be walking up and down with a woman and everywhere she look, everywhere she go, and that, this and that, and this and that. You need to give her some space. You need to organize yourself, man. Chances are, you'd see some different reactions, because contrary to what a lot of people may believe, we actually do care about what our friends say to us. We actually do take their advice 95% of the time, you know? So once we understand that, and once we if we call ourselves friends, we too must understand that we have a role to play. And that role is to ensure that we tell you the truth. We just be frank with you, you know, and you know, we really and truly look out for the well-being of you. And that can only happen if we love you.
And this is an actual thing that we can start to do from tonight, coming out of this conversation, because every one of the men on tonight's call is connected to another man, as a brethren, as a bona fide friend, as a brother, as Philip is saying, right? In different ways, as a father, as a mentor. So one of the things that we can start to do from this conversation is to look into ourselves and say, am I giving good counsel? Am I one of the safe spaces that this man can come to whenever he has a problem? Am I being judgmental, right? I know that there's some of us, depending on our belief system too, where we just love to defend it, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. And so when people come to us with the fact that they did go ahead, right, and do the things then when they come, there is no space for them to really unpack it in honesty. So I think that's also very important. So everybody who is here as a man tonight can start to be a part of the change by assessing your friendships as well. Let me jump over to Brian on this very important point of support, you know, in our current state, and how we can move away from this fragility in terms of, you know, possession over as a means of feeling like a man.
Well, first things first, as I go back to love, as both the other gentlemen have pointed out, love is not selfish. Love doesn't seek, love gives. And any man who say, yo, you know, say, you need to give me this, give me that, or you are mine, or you are this or that, straight up don't love you. A lot of Jamaican men will even say them love you. And then there's the saying that if a man loves you, yeah, check you, I'm a rate your baby. You know, and if a man really loves you, he's gonna give 110%. Now the truth is, if a man truly loves you, you're gonna feel it more than you're gonna hear it. You're gonna see it, and you're gonna live it. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. If you are not giving more in a relationship as a man or a woman, you need to check yourself if you really love the person. Because I don't believe it's going to be a 50-50 thing. I am going to give you 100% and you're going to give me 100%, and we have a complete circle. Yeah. So I really believe that a lot of relationships are hindered by what love is, or what they think love is versus what it truly is. If you're a biblical person, you can go to 1 Corinthians 13 and you look at love is patient, love is kind, love is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrong. And whole heap of times I have to assess my relationship with my wife and see if I really love her, because if I'm not aligned to those things that I know exist, you know, even though I say I love her, even though I try to show love, if I'm not living up to that straight up, I'm not really living in love. So a lot of us not living in love as men, you know, we like the person, you know, we really check for her, but we're not willing to sacrifice in entirety for her. We're willing to sacrifice her if she this way, but we're not willing to sacrifice ourselves. Wow. And that is not true love. None at all, yeah? No matter what you want to say, it's not love. And then if you love that person and you believe in a loving relationship, you're going to align yourself, as Philip said in the chat, to people who are also in loving relationships. When I want to talk sports, I'm going to find my sports brethren them. When I want to talk cricket in particular, I'm going to find Philip, because, you know, Philip and I have an understanding with cricket. But when you come on to football or whatever, you know, I'm not going to necessarily go to Philip. So it is in alignment to what you believe love is. And straight up, if you're a man and none of your brethren them don't have no stable relationship and you are in a stable relationship, sooner or later, you're not going to be in a stable relationship. Yeah, because that influence that they're having on you, especially if you're the only one, yeah, respectfully, you may try to influence all of them, but if you're the only one, you're going to have a warm task. So it's important to find that balance and find people who are around you as support systems. And no man can tell me that them have no support system. Everywhere we go, when we play ball, we have a support system. We have a WhatsApp group for that. When we play a game, we have a support system. We have a WhatsApp group for that. If we want to go range, we know who forgot to. In all of these groups, there must be one other person who is aligned to your beliefs that you can reach out to. But it takes some time to identify that. It takes some research, and it takes some asking. As men, we don't want to ask. How many of us are going to sit down and say, yo, I have a little issue on my yard, you know, or you don't deal with it? Yeah, no, you're going to seem weak. You're going to seem like you're not in control. Nothing no go so. A strong man asks for help. Yeah. So I think we just have to relearn as a whole society. We are going to start here, myself, Kerry, Patrick, you know, in every little circle that we are a part of, in trying to influence change, to make the man them know, say a lot of what we think, you know, is being a real man is not the case. And the truth is in, them say the truth is in the pudding. So yeah, you have to eat it and eat a slice of reality and realize that when you kill a woman or beat a woman, you're not a man, you're not a real man, and society and a whole not going to support you. So if you are not being supported when you're doing those wrongs, and when you claim say you love her, but you beat her or whatever, something wrong.
Something is wrong. Somebody in the comments, C. Henry said, dropping gems, and thank you for these gems, Brian. I want to jump over to Patrick to get a sense of, you know, is it the norm to reach out brother to brother, man to man, and say, yo, me see you look kind of a little bit off recently. Oh, you stay, how you do? You good? Is that a thing, Patrick? Is it enough of a thing?
Well, I don't think it's enough of a thing. What is a thing? You know, certainly for me, because for me, you have to be very deliberate about friendship.
That's it.
You know,
yeah.
You can't just, you know, not because you work here, it means that your friend should be here, right? Because if there's nobody here that is aligned with your purpose and your objective, it means that you'll be defeating yourself if you try to be friends with people who you're not aligned with emotionally and otherwise, right? I certainly have been blessed with some very good friends who I can call on for advice to say, hey, you know, this is happening, and you know, what are your views on this, right? So I think it happens, but I don't think it happens enough. As I totally agree with Brian. If it was okay for me just to say ditto, I would, you know, but I have to add my own perspective because I totally agree with everything that he has to say, right? And a lot of people will tell people that Patrick is my friend, but I will not tell anybody that they are my friend, because not because he's my friend doesn't mean that I am his, right? And it's important for people to understand that. You know, people will say that Patrick is my best friend, but my best friend is elsewhere, right? Because I am to him and who is not to me, right? Mm-hmm. That you have to understand the concept of friendship and so on. So as I said before, it happens, but it does not happen a lot because men don't trust easily, really, you know. And as I said before, a lot of men, we are cultured in Jamaica to not seem too effeminate, you know. And if you're expressive, if you go and ask somebody, you seem weak, and you know. But you have to really be a strong man a strong man, as Brian said, understand that he needs to ask, right?
He needs to ask for help. And you know, something just came to mind that a part of the dynamic in terms of getting the support that men need can also be rooted in the fact that sometimes you have to seek out people that are a little bit older than you. Because all of your young man brethren, them ever have the answers too. Sometimes them still are trying to go to Wagwana world, right? And they need almost like a mentor figure, somebody even 5-10 years ahead, or even just in terms of stage. Sometimes that age do it is stage, you know, at a different stage in life, where they can come back and say to you, you know, when I was there, I used to do this foolishness and it don't work. So try this way. So I'm encouraging the three of you, especially because it's the three of you I have one life class, to go back, you know, and for those who are logging in, Greg and Philip and Sheldon, right? To really start or to continue these conversations about checking in on men and make them know that it's okay to have a space where you can open up, right? And to really honor when people open up to us and really hold their stories close to heart as well, because nobody wants their stories to be, you know, the next big topic in the WhatsApp group after somebody reach out to you one-on-one. So creating that space where we can start a small change that can eventually get bigger, that men can know that it's okay, right, to seek out support, and there is at least one person I can connect to for this kind of support. So let me see what's going on in the chat box. O'Keefe says, friendship starts with your girlfriend or wife at home. That is where friendship is. Very interesting. Let's see. And Deshane was talking about the love part when Brian was on that fabulous drop gemming. Deshane says, put our names where love is. When the characteristic of love is being stated, then we can measure it can be a measure of what we do have and if we give love as well. So Patre, Brian, and Kerry, we shared a couple days back, right? Something that I heard in a man space recently that set my life upside down, right? It made me stop and go, A man said to me in a space that was created mostly for men, I was the only woman in the space, and one of the men said that man is the only creature who is loved, who is not loved unconditionally. Man is the only creature who is not loved unconditionally. And I really want to hear, especially the men in the chat, to give me a feedback on whether or not you agree with this. Because I had some very curious responses when I shared it on social media. People were like, me not think so. And here comes Demar saying, so true. So let me start with Kerry. Kerry, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, a few days ago when this came up, I thought it would be interesting to run the question by my wife. But I didn't say man.
I said you.
And interestingly, she paused. She paused for more than 5 seconds.
Which is unlike her, Kerry.
No, that is when I knew something was seriously wrong. And she turned to me and she said, "True."
We have at least one member of the female species saying, yeah, man, something goes for real.
She said, true. It is something that she had never, ever thought about. And I said to her that I really and truly never thought about it either. But it is so true because with a man, when a man sees a woman, a man says, all right, well, I love this woman and I'm going to do what I need to do and so on and so forth, what I need to do. For a woman, she really and truly not really sure, if she wants to reason it out in the same way the man reason it out. So long and short of it, she's going to say that, why, if the man didn't have the money, I don't know if I go really want to stay with him, Him drive a car, I'm gonna get around. Him have a nice job, these are all the conditions that they place into the equation before so a woman won't see a man and say, I just like him. I go and find man, so on and so forth, and I'm going to be with him forever. So no, they're going to place something beside it. If the man can't do this fair, if the man can't do that, if the man is not, of a certain station in life. So, hey, it is just so true. And it has now opened not only my eyes, but it has opened the eyes of my wife. And I'm hoping that now she will, try to, which I'm sure she will at some point in time, she will come to me and say, no, I've thought about it and this is my real perspective on it.
I wish we had it. Yes, I wish we had the real perspective as well as the initial perspective for Life Class, but hopefully we can share space again soon and hear, right, what she has to say. So I disagree on some points, but I like the feedback. So I'm going to jump over to the other two panelists and then I'll pull up some of the comments from the chat. Brian, what do you think?
I missed it in the initial stages. So when it was just asked, I said to myself, if you realize first of the chat now blew up now with the ladies are comment and the men are comment. In a relationship in 2021, when a man meets a woman, and I may ask you, Kamala, what's the first thing you would ask the man?
Well, I'm big on emotional intelligence. So I'm going to ask you some psychological questions.
Let me not ask Kamala. Generally, and with all due respect, based on what I see on social media, a lot too, the woman will say, what do you bring to the table? The man just wants the baby come at the table with me. The man just wants you at the table with him. Yeah, and that in itself answers the question to me. You know, it is based on a lot of conditions, and it is rough. It's not fair. It's true. But I think it goes back to something what Sheldon said, which is it's not real love. And that is something I'm big on, reshaping what we view love as and what we realize love isn't. You know, there are elements of love in every relationship, but is it true love? Is it real love? And not according to what happened on TV or in the books, because a lot of time, respectfully again, ladies, a lot of women read the books, especially from doctors and from psychologists and whatever, and they take it as gospel, and it has to be in their relationship. While their relationship was not a part of the study that was done, they are completely in a relationship where the man is from completely somewhere else and all of those things. You know, they don't look at the variables. If Dr. So-and-so says so, it's so it go. And that's a big problem. That's a big problem. So I do believe, and a lot of women will agree, if you're honest, that the first thing they'll ask is, what do you bring to the table? Or why should I come to the table with you? Versus, let's just be at the table together. Yeah. So I think that answers it.
So for you, the expression of that man in that group is true. You agree? Okay. All right. Patre, what say you? Is it
Well,
3
not
of
for my
3?
wife. Let me make sure I said that straight. You know, she's listening.
Please clarify.
Not for my wife, straight. Yeah.
Hey, I was just about to make a similar disclaimer. You know, but I hear it every day that, you know, I love you unconditionally. But I totally agree that men are the kind of species that are not loved without conditions. You know, certainly for me in public life, as a public figure, I've had to contend with a lot of women reaching out to me, whether on social media or, you know, telling me how much they like me and that kind of thing. And I was like, you know, but you know me years now or all along, what, you know, so you get the feeling that because you're in the media every day, because you're a public figure, because you know, perhaps sit on national boards, or you're a respected
profile.
yes, you have a higher profile. You know, a lot of women are drawn to that. And as a man, it becomes very difficult because you have to decipher who is genuine and who is not. So you find that because of this condition, because of who I am, because of what my status is, you find that you get unwanted attention or more attention that you would have gotten over the years. So having assessed my growth and my career span, you know, I can say definitely that women are very big on conditions. Yeah?
Especially when it comes to the man that they're a prospective partner.
Most certainly.
Wow. I think I would love to hear a woman's voice on the microphone. So let us hear, let me see if any woman wants to raise her hand to come on microphone to give her feedback on this. With your permission, gentlemen, can we invite a female voice other than mine to come into this piece of the convo? Demar Swaby says, thank you for that. Demar says, for us as males, the easiest path to truth is what makes sense. We walk so many paths that go unrecognized. It is us relying on our partners to pull up and say, oh my God, this man really going the extra mile. So that sounds like Demar is kind of referencing the whole need for validation as well. Let me see now. Genevieve is responding to your question, Brian, about what kind of questions women would typically ask. Where do you see yourself in a few years from now? What are your dreams, goals, and visions? Would you compromise your values to get ahead in life? Genevieve, you're so on point. And I see here that Norman is just in case you're wondering, Norman says, I help with everything in the house, wash, cook, clean, and all. And Grace is saying a lot of women will love a man for who he is, while many men now are looking out for a woman with a good financial status. So this is Grace entering the chat with her feminine perspective. In my social media feedback, several persons said they disagreed because, hear what, you know, what does it really mean to have, we all have our conditions, is pretty much what they're saying. So even if it's not performative, meaning a man is supposed to provide and protect, women will choose a man for other things, right? Similarly, men will choose women for other things. So there is a condition implied, right? A man will choose a woman because she may be a trophy wife, trophy profile. It fits into making him look better. He may choose her for companionship, for sex, for procreate, whatever it is, but we all have our conditions. My concern is that the conditions for men, and tell me if you agree, panelists, the conditions for men has a lot to do with them performing and oftentimes under pressure, right? So providing, which creates so many uncertainties. Suppose the economy goes down. Am I less of a man? Will you still want me? You understand? If this deal does not go through and my money, you know, my net worth dips. So I believe it goes both ways, but I'm concerned for our men and for our women because of the specific things we look to men for, they can become very problematic. So much pressure can come from it. And this is where I'm sitting. These are my truths and I'm holding on to them, right? I have some backup here. Ruthann says, I agree, Kamala. Some women are like men, they go for the appearance only, absolutely. And my friend Ray on social media said, in response to my post, he said, well, what about women who go for men who are in prison, right? And to me, the man is providing something. It's just different than what we think. He's providing companionship. He's providing validation. You get what I mean? But it's the external measures of worth that I think too many men are being held to that standard of, you know, and so if I don't bring something tangible to the table, am I still worthy? Patria, what you think? You think I'm onto something or you think I'm just defending the women?
I think there's validity in the point. Certainly. I think, as I said before, people are defined by their experiences. You know, a lot of people invest in relationships that didn't work out, and then they change their perspective as to what relationship means to them, what companionship means to them. So everybody try to satisfy their needs, and I think that's what makes us different, our experiences, right? And our perspective, it goes back to the point that we have made before, our perspective on what relationship is, what it should be. And I think that's just the foundation. What do you understand love to be? And sometimes if you have love, everything else will take care of itself. If you love unconditionally, right? And as Kof said, if I give 100% to a relationship and my partner gives 100% to that relationship, then we have a full whole, right? And therefore that should be the only thing that matters. I think we give too much credence to some auxiliary stuff that really does not benefit the relationship. There are some perspectives that don't benefit us at all, right? And I think that one of the most important criteria to relationship is our ability to love each other, right? And, you know, once you love each other, and I dare say, be spiritually connected, you know, for those persons who are spiritual and religious, you know, once you have God in that equation, everything else will fall into place. Nothing else really matters.
Brian, what are your thoughts on that piece?
I mean, Kamala is going to be diplomatic as the host of the panel and try to make sure that there's some alignment and for us to feel like we're all safe. I'm going to. I don't believe in absolutes. I don't believe in generalizations, and I said it the way I did for a reason. But the truth is, you're right. There is a lot more weight on the men as it relates to what it is that they bring to the table and what is considered conditions that apply. The men know for the women would have to look, and they would have to look in the fine print to really see what these conditions are, because every woman, not every woman, again, no generalizations. A lot of women will say the men are just not emotional, physical beings. So when we see, we like, and that is the condition from she look good, which is not the truth. You know, it's just that we may have them in the fine print. So yes, there are conditions, but the conditions that we have, I think we are more willing to, I mean, maybe it goes back to Adam being created from God, you know, maybe we are more realizing and recognizing that we can now help these conditions or help to bring these conditions, you know, to a level that we don't need to see them, so to speak, or we are not big on, oh, you need to bring this, you need to bring that. We just want the relationship, and we understand that the two as one will now bring all of these things to fruition. So I agree with that to an extent, but I know you play host, So I'm gonna leave you. But the truth is, the bigger weight is on the men. Conditions apply. You look at all the questions that I think it was Genevieve shared in there, and I'm sure if she continued, we would have full up the chat for the night.
So Brian, come out strong. Let me jump over to Kerry and see if we can mercy. Kerry, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Brian. I agree with Brian. One of the things that I was looking at as well is that, sorry, with men, we tend to, so when we look at a woman, I think one of the things that we look at is, okay, will this woman make a good mother for my children? How will my kids look? Can she run my household? Is this a potential person who can run a household for me? So we actually do have a set of criteria that we look for in women, conditions. And not just right. So set of conditions are not just well, we just look at you and you look good and we just okay, fine. This is the one I'm going to take, throw over our shoulder and go about business. So I agree with Brian to say that there's a heavier weighting on men. Heavier weighting for some of the real hardcore stuff, in a relationship. And by hardcore stuff, I mean the heavy lifting, going out there and working, providing for the family, and not just for her, but for the family, because of course, you're going to build a family, so you're going to have to provide for everybody. You're going to have to be the one to protect the family. You're going to have to be the one who, will have to ensure that you guide the family along a particular pathway. So I believe that what society has said that our role needs to be is of a greater level than what the women pretty much have to go through. It's just a natural way of things, and I've accepted it. I've accepted that one of the things that we have to do is, and if you're looking squarely from a biblical perspective, it says that men are the head of the household. We're the leaders. We're the ones who are going to have to do the heavy lifting. We're the ones who have to do that. So yeah, sometimes we would love to have, that the help. We'd love to have the help, but at the same time, we as men, there's some fulfillment that we get when we do the things that we are supposed to do. Family is flourishing, and we can sit back, watch our children grow. We sit down and we listen to our children say, my father was a brilliant man. He did this for me. He did that for me. When you hear your wife speak about you in public, oh, my husband is the best thing since sliced bread. And, that is when we sit back and we say, it was all worth it. So we have our role to play. We just have to suck it up and play it. But sometimes who wouldn't mind a little help, and that's generally how I see it.
I love that. I just want to acknowledge Kerry in the chat. Kerry Smith Scott, that name sounds familiar to you. I want to acknowledge Josette rather. Does that name sound familiar to you, Kerry?
Oh, Lord.
I would love to invite her to come on microphone at this auspicious moment to share her thoughts on the said topic, right? On this segment's topic. Josette, please accept our microphone and step onto our stage, please and thank you. Somebody in the comments say, yay. Josette, are you seeing the option to unmute?
Yes. Are you hearing me?
Excellent. Yes, hearing you loud and clear. Go for it. Welcome.
Okay. Well, I just thought that I should address the point where or the comment from your previous conversation that men are the only people who are not loved unconditionally.
Unconditionally, yes.
Right. And I mean, having in the moment when my husband posed that question to me, I think my right away answer was, it's true. But having thought about it, I believe that we all impose conditions on love in some way. And especially when we meet somebody and we're trying to form a bond that will ultimately lead to love, there is some condition imposed. So maybe it's your friend, and sometimes it's there are intangible things that we can't really look, but we can't really touch and feel. But we can feel, but not things that we can feel, we can touch. Right. So we know that you must be kind to me, and that sort of thing. However, for men and getting into romantic relationships with men, sometimes the conditions that are imposed are more measurable and more tangible. So either you meet it or you don't meet it, and so we can hold men more accountable to those conditions, as opposed to maybe the conditions that are imposed on a random friend who is just somebody who's supportive and so on. So, and how men also posture themselves in terms of what it is they have to offer, end up probably coming across a little bit vulgar. And so it gets a little bit uncomfortable when people say to you that, this is the reason I love you, or this is what I am looking for from you. So I think at the end of the day, it is not that they're not loved unconditionally. It's just that the conditions that tend to be ascribed to them tend to be a little bit more tangible and more measurable. And so it comes across as if I am the only one with a condition.
Josette, Kerry, yes. Let me tell you what my response is. Josette for president. That's all I have to say on this point, because Josette has so elegantly put into focus what I was trying to communicate with my previous comments, that we all have our conditions, but it's just that, as she said, that the conditions of men are more measurable, right? And I don't think that it's the healthiest way, but she has framed it well and given a balance. Genevieve says, go Mrs. Scott, we love you up here. Just said, please keep coming back as my backative, right? So nobody else, I don't need no other votes. Go ahead, Josette. So I don't need any other vote from the chat, just says so, and that's all. So Kerry, that settles it in my book, right? And so, as promised, as hoped for, Josette has come in with her reasoned reaction to the quote, and we love it over here. I see so many comments in the chat that's bigging up Josette, so thank you for raising your hand, and thank you for setting it up for her, Kerry. You did an excellent job in prefacing this piece of it for us. I saw a dialogue brewing in the chat between Brian and other members of the Life Class family, including Mrs. Love K, about what Kerry was talking about as it relates to the pressure that men bear and the roles, you know, in terms of the roles that they play, and highlighting the fact that sometimes we think about one role, man versus woman's role, being, you know, one is more intense than the other. And the fact is that the role that women are asked to bear is also can get very heavy as well. It can include a lot of heavy lifting, nurturing, caring for the home, balancing childcare, especially if it is that the woman works outside the home as well. So we just want to underscore that point that I personally don't think it's one being more than the other. The pressure is real, but we just want to highlight today, because today is our men we're talking about, highlight the pressure from their perspective that they face as it relates to, you know, giving us the more measurable elements of in terms of conditions in the love space. I think we have another question in the chat. Let me see if I can pull it up. Shanique says, is it love that is unconditional, or is it relationships that require conditions? Boy, the Life Class family come with it tonight. I like it. Patre, quick response, because we're approaching wrap-up time. What are your thoughts to this, Patre? Is it love that should be unconditional?
I believe that it should be love that is unconditional. I totally agree. But I'm leaning, I think it should be a bit of both, not a bit of both. I think love should be unconditional, but I think that for a relationship to work, there must be some guiding principles. right? And those guiding principles can be called conditions, but certainly, and somebody speak about being equally yoked, being of the same kind of mindset, be of the same kind of progressive nature, and so on. So while love should be unconditional, I believe that relationships should be guided by some form of principles.
Love that. And I think it was my friend Sherian in the comments who was referencing the fact that even in platonic friendships, sometimes we have unequal yoking. So it's important to think about it from relationships in general and how we show up to those relationships. So because we are coming to the end of class, we want to launch our post-class poll because we want to hear back from the men only, ladies. Please stand down. From the men only, what they got from class, what they're leaving with, and their general feedback about tonight's session. I love the comments in the chat so far. Kemoy says, hi Kemoy. She says, this was good, we need a part 2. I love how life class audience is just so involved and so engaged. And that means, gentlemen, you've done an awesome job so far this evening. So as we're preparing to wrap it, I want to ask each of you to give our men who are listening in particular, at least one major takeaway, something that has helped to transform you and your journey into masculinity. What do you want the men to remember as they're leaving this space for now until next time? Let me start with Patrice, since I have you on stage right now.
Spirituality. I mean, just it's important for us to have a source of strength, a source to call upon, a source to take us through things that we cannot maneuver using our own strength or our own abilities. So it's very important for men to recognize that it is important for you to get in touch with your spirituality. It is important for us to for you to have a relationship with God. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the God that I believe in, but certainly your God. I mean, your source of strength, that is very, very important.
Excellently said, Patrice. And a part of why I think it's so important is because, again, coming back to the framing, men are expected to have the answers. And we want to model for our men and just remind our men that vulnerability is okay, and not knowing is fine, and having to seek out to get answers is also fine. And we want to encourage our women and partners of our men in general to be patient and kind and understanding and empathic in the same way that you want space to not know and not have it all figured out. Our men need the same space as well, right? Let me jump over to Kerry. Kerry, what's your one big ticket takeaway you want our men to leave with this evening?
My one big ticket that I want men to know is that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable without any kind of condition, without being fearful that that vulnerability will at some point in time come back and haunt you. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be vulnerable, just be vulnerable in a space that you're comfortable being vulnerable in, because it really and truly helps to heal the soul. And
love that.
Continue to cling to God.
I love that. So vulnerability helps us to continue to heal the soul. I think we should put that somewhere on a t-shirt, in the chat, everywhere, right? It continues to heal the soul, and we all need to have our souls healed. So thank you for that, Kerry. Let me run over now to Brian. Let's hear from you what your big ticket takeaway is for our men this evening.
Before I go to my personal one, I want to agree with Kerry and Patrice. I want to a quick point on what Patrice said. I'm glad it's closing, so I can say this now because we soon close and nobody will run it down. That I raise a controversial point that I believe women need men more than men need women, because men came from God and women came from men. So men are always seeking to go back to God because that's where we belong, and women belong with us, right? So we need to understand straight up, we need a higher being. We need God in our lives to guide us, because that's where we come from. There's an element of divinity in us, so that we need to tap into that so that we can get adequate leadership from him so that we can lead the right way. Yeah, so that's on that point. But I think for me, I just want our men to know that there's a saying in Jamaica that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's not true, right? As long as you're alive, you can learn and relearn. And that is something that we have to believe and understand. You can't be set in your ways and say, boy, I saw my turn. No, if it doesn't work for your relationship, and this is something you want to work, then you can adapt. I'm not telling you you're supposed to change and become less of the man that you think you are, but you can compromise. Relationships are all about giving and taking. You have to compromise. You have to have some sort of leeway. Yeah, you must sacrifice some of you for the person, and the person will do the same thing for you. So we have to just relearn, reculture ourselves, especially in an evolving world. As we get more knowledge too, we realize some of the things that we did that we thought were of a real man status is not. So change it, wheel and come again.
I love that. And I love that. And Brian, you're lucky tonight, because that point where you raise, you're the sandwich in between the two powerful gems. If I ever had the time, you see, me and you. But thank you for that. I love that last piece. It's never too late to learn and to be transformed ultimately for your better. Not because somebody wanted to, but for your better. And it will translate into good relationships. Thank you so much. Let me ask our tech team to share the results of the poll so we can hear what our men had to say as we, all right, here we go. So the first one, my mood improved since the start of life class. Let's see. 100% of you said yes or sort of. That's amazing. And we're glad we had a role to play in that. The panelists' stories of becoming have inspired me to better love and accept myself as a man. And 100% of you, wow, said yes or sort of. I am better able to tackle the things which undermine self-love and do something about it. And again, 100% of you said yes or sort of. I received tools to improve my important relationships as a man. 100% of you said either yes or sort of. And I received what I expected from this class. All of you gave a positive response, either totally or mostly. So Brian Koff, Patrero, and Kerry Scott, please to tap on yourself on the shoulder. That means you did your jobs tonight, and an excellent one at that, because everything that the men in the chat came for in our fabulous JN audience, they got it. And you were integral in delivering that. Thank you so much, Life Class family. I love you, bad. Thank you for keep coming back. Thank you for being as engaged as you are. Thank you for the validation, the feedback. We appreciate each and every one of you. In rainy weather, in storm weather, in lockdown, you keep coming back, and we love you for it unconditionally. Thank you so much. And please come back next week when we're going to have another amazing, down-to-earth, relatable, powerful conversation. We're talking about intimacy next week. You don't want to miss it. I promise you, right? That's on Mary Had a Little Lamb. So come back next week, bring a friend, and keep sharing about Life Class on your social media spaces. Until then, panelists, just give them a quick touch of your voice to just say goodbye. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on this week.
Goodbye.
Brian, say something about the people in here.
Goodbye, goodbye. Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the love and support.
And yes, and let me just big up Pilar, Whitney, Celia, Kevin, Javon, and Claudine, members of the JN team who make this possible. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for the feedback. Denson, Natty, Camille, all of you, much love. And until next week, be well and take care of your good selves. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.